Ever since I can remember, I've had a fascination with older women. Bold and expressive older women like Ari Seth Cohen, Carmen del Orefice, and last but definitely not least, my favorite out of all of them, my wonderful grandmother, Bluma. That's not my grandma. My grandma is really the person who encouraged me to be creative, to be the person that I am today. And going to her house was a magical place where I could explore my creativity. It's where I learned how to draw, make dolls, and make collages. While other kids were playing sports, I played in my grandmother's closet, as you can probably tell. We looked at old movies together, looked at books, and she really is the one who taught me everything about culture, music, and art. She really was my best friend. At 7 years old, I made my first book of drawings, a book of fabulous older women based on my grandmother and her friends. I wanted to be part of their world, like Mrs. Sugarbaker Doodleburger. They always had so much fun, and they always taught me that it was okay to grow older. I couldn't wait to be like them. After high school, I moved to Seattle to study art history. And when I came back from college, I moved in with my mother to help my grandmother. She had fallen ill. While my friends were looking for jobs and trying to figure out what they were going to do for the rest of their lives, I knew that I had to take care of my grandmother. She had taken such great care of me. And I knew that I would figure it out, what I was going to do for the rest of my life, spending time with her. My grandmother was a librarian, and she loved going to work every single day. And I would ask her, "Grandma, what is your secret? What am I going to do for the rest of my life?" And she would say, "Honey, just relax. Find something you love doing every single day, and just don't be nervous, and just appreciate it, and have no regrets." I had no idea how I would figure it out. My grandmother always told me that if I wanted to do something creative, I should move to New York City. In 2008, after she passed away, I knew it was finally time to follow her advice. Although this was the hardest time in my whole life, I knew that with her guidance, I would figure it out. I hit the streets, excited. I had no idea what would happen. There were so many possibilities. Almost immediately, I started to notice the most incredibly dressed, vital, and creative older people on the street. So different than our media's picture of aging. One day, I borrowed my roommate's camera. I had never taken a picture before. I was the worst photographer there was. And I started to photograph and interview older people on the street. I started a blog called Advanced Style that showed my idea of aging. With aging comes an incredible sense of freedom and vitality, wisdom and experience, eccentricity and elegance. I've had the wonderful opportunity to meet women like 94-year-old artist Ilona Royce Smithkin, who only found self-confidence and happiness in her 80s when she started to do cabaret. 103-year-old Ruth Coben does Pilates twice a week. She can beat me in any single board game every single time, and she always says, "Celebrate every day and don't look at the calendar." There's Ruth. These women have really taught me that style is not a superficial thing, that dressing up and being creative allows us to be healed. I met this woman, Marta, and after I took her photograph, she told me she had just left cancer treatment. And dressing up allows her to take away from the heaviness of her illness and stay positive every day. I often see this woman and her caretaker on the Upper East Side, and although she can no longer speak and is wheelchair-bound, she continues to express herself every single day with her vibrant hats and wonderful colors. I never had any expectations for this project, nor did I think that the idea of sharing images of vital older women was something revolutionary. They have had a profound impact on the way that I view life and aging, and it's always an honor when younger women come to approach me and say they no longer fear aging. In fact, they can't wait to be like these women. Older women often comment on my blog that they no longer feel invisible, and now they feel the permission to dress up every day. I noticed a few years into the project a shift in the media and the way that they were portraying aging, from negative and clinical to a more positive and energetic view on growing older. All of a sudden, aging was in. I produced a book about my street style photography and made a film starring 7 of the incredible women from my blog. I was also been given the opportunity to work with the women on campaigns for international fashion brands Karen Walker, Vogue Australia, and many other international fashion publications. It is my hope that if we begin to see older people differently, we will begin to treat them differently. I've been so lucky to have so many incredible older men and women in my life. Older men and women who continue to create, communicate, and contribute. They have reinforced in me the idea that my grandmother taught me so long ago, that we truly get better with age. Allow me to introduce one of the first women that I ever photographed, Deborah Rapoport. She is a perfect example of someone who is aging with vitality.
I was a very creative child. My sister and I loved to dress up. Instead of dolls, we would dress ourselves up. This was encouraged by my mother and my grandmother because they could see us develop and discover and experiment, finding creative solutions throughout life. I use that still today as a way of solving issues. As a child, I was a very intense, shy, and extremely big worrier. So much so that my father would say to me, "I think I will hire you to worry for me." Creativity was my way out. I felt that with creativity, there are no rules. And without rules, there is no fear. We felt safe, and we felt that there was no judgment. School didn't always feel that way. My mother was a maverick and a seeker, and we became strict vegetarians in the late 1940s. So she would keep us home for wellness days because we were never sick. And this was an opportunity to go museuming, go antiquing, and make art. Boy, was she ahead of her time. Being so shy and independent, I knew I had to structure my own life. But how? I wanted to stay home while my older, very beautiful, sophisticated sister was out on the town. I wanted to stay home, dress up, dress the dog, and invent outfits that would embellish and camouflage and be tempting over my less than perfect teenage body. I called this ABCs, assembling, building, and constructing, of forms on my body out of non-traditional and very unusual materials. I was lucky enough that my grandmother and mother encouraged me to go to Berkeley, California, to graduate school to study textiles and costume. The issue of a career was not even talked about. I always felt that hand to mouth is better than 9 to 5. So I pursued that and continued to create objects for the body. I was lucky enough at 25 to secure a prestigious job at the University of California. After 8 years of teaching, I realized it was not for me. There wasn't enough freedom or creativity, and the security certainly didn't matter to me. I went back to New York, not knowing what I was going to be doing. I just knew that I was going to pursue my art and continue to make objects for the body. At 50, I realized life was getting freer. There was still a little birdie on my shoulder, but only with a cautious voice. At 60, that birdie flew away. That birdie doesn't want to fly. Anyway, you get my drift. At 62, I met my current partner. Who would think? The relationship is also joyful and effortless, and he even participates in advanced style. A little later on, I run into Ari. He's managing the bookstore at the new museum in New York City. I walk in. I have magenta hair. It's raining. I get rid of my umbrella and my coat. He runs up to me and says, "I have a blog of women over 60. Can I take your photograph?" And I blurt out, "How do you know I'm over 60? Takes my photograph. I whip out my business card. I say, "Ari, come on over. I'll dress up. I'll undress. I'll even make you lunch." And the rest is history. Being a very important part of his blog, book, and now the film, I feel like I'm an ambassador for the advanced style movement. Knowing better with age. So much part of Ari's initiative for interesting things, I even was on a billboard all over New York for Kmart saying, "Money can't buy style." So at 70 and in good health, I continue to make hats, accessories, and embellishments for the body, and I call them hatscapes. With courage and confidence, I feel that the possibilities are endless. I even modeled nude for a photographer last year, and that was great fun. So I want to encourage men and women of all ages to trust and tap into your creativity in whatever form it comes. We've got to keep on. Remember, it's never too late if we haven't yet met our destiny.